And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, from across Louisiana plain, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism, advancing the cause of freedom, and slowly but surely, day by day, draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by concerned and active Louisiana first citizens just like you. Hello, State of Freedom family. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Y'all are the absolute best. We are only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us, and you can learn more about all of that there. A reminder that Election Day is coming again. It's November 18th, and as before, we are encouraging all State of Freedom listeners and your families to make a plan to vote in person on Election Day if you can. Now, we are continuing the Race to the Finish series. We hope that you enjoy it. Please share these episodes with friends and family who live in the districts that we're covering. These final races really will make the critical difference in the makeup of the legislature, the culture of the legislature, and really the future of our state. As a reminder, you can send your friends and family who may not be interested in a full episode, you can send them little snack-sized clips of the interviews with these candidates. Those can be found on our YouTube and Rumble channels, and the links to the YouTube and Rumble channels are both in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. So today we have joining us a special guest who is a patriot, a Louisiana First candidate who wants to be part of making Louisiana truly great. Brian Glorioso is running for state rep in District 90. And before we talk to Brian, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Proverbs chapter 8, verses 14 through 18. And this passage is titled The Power of Wisdom. And it says, "You will find true success when you find me, for I have insight into wise plans that are designed just for you. I hold in my hands living understanding, courage, and strength. I empower kings to reign and rulers to make laws that are just. I empower princes to rise and take dominion, and generous ones to govern the earth. I will show my love to those who passionately love me, for they will search and search continually until they find me. Unending wealth and glory come to those who discover where I dwell. The riches of righteousness and a long, satisfying life will be given to them." And I love this passage because it takes the pressure off of us to perform. It shows, what I just see that it shows us that success comes as a result of seeking wisdom from the Lord. He imparts all that we need as we seek wisdom. And this psalm reminds me of the conversation that Solomon had with God, where God was so pleased with Solomon that he offered that he would give King Solomon anything that he desired. And Solomon's desire was for the wisdom of the Lord to be imparted for him so that he could govern the Lord's people well. And that response from Solomon touched the Lord so much that he not only gave him wisdom, but he gave him riches beyond measure. And that story has always spoken so deeply to me, this idea of having wisdom as my very first desire. And I feel like this passage in Proverbs is very likely Solomon explaining in a very poetic way how the Lord adds everything to your efforts when the desire of your heart is seeking the wisdom of the Lord, because Solomon experienced it.
Yeah. And the wisdom of the Lord, when we seek him, enables us to do our duty, and then God will take care of the results. I can't help but think that John Adams, who said that duty is ours and the results are God's, may have read that passage from Proverbs a time or two.
I bet he had.
To seek wisdom and do our duty and leave the results to God. Well, speaking of someone who is doing his duty and has been for a number of years in St. Tammany politics as a member of the Republican Party and very active over there, our guest today, Brian Glorioso, as you said, who is in the runoff for state rep over in St. Tammany Parish. And what a pleasure it is to have you, Brian. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this morning.
Well, I'm so glad that you took a few minutes today to interrupt a trip with your son. I was beginning to feel a little bit envious pre-show when you were telling us about where you are and what you're doing, and it's going to prompt me to take a trip up there before too long because I know it's beautiful. I've never been.
Chris, you have to tell the listeners where it is now.
Well, Brian, tell us where you are. Tell the listeners where you are.
So we're outside of Yellowstone National Park. My son was in school up here, and I'm picking him up, and we're spending a couple days together, and it is absolutely beautiful. All of God's majesty is on display here, and I would recommend anyone that has the opportunity to come see it. It is truly remarkable.
That is
amazing.
Just incredible. Well, so Brian, talk to the listeners a little bit about your background. I know, as I said, that you've been involved in the Republican Party in St. Tammany. I think you're a member of the RPEC over there. What made you decide to get involved actively in politics? What motivated you originally?
Well, I've always had an interest in politics going back to when I was a child. Of course, I grew up when Ronald Reagan was president, and I was always inspired by him. And so it's always been something I had an interest in. I threw my hat in the ring for the first time in 2018, kind of at the last minute. And it was an interesting race, and we did well, but we didn't win. And I learned a lot in that race. And then I got involved again with the Republican Party. I ran for and was elected to the RPEC of St. Tammany. And then I was also shortly thereafter, about a year later, elected to be the chairman of St. Tammany Republican Party. And I've served in that role. I serve as vice chairman now. I step down as chairman to run for office. So I've always been involved, always been a solid Republican. And what happened was there was a referendum on the ballot for a casino in Slidell that my opponent pushed forward. And St. Tammany residents had rejected gambling before, and the business community really came together and said, no, we do not want this casino here. It's not going to be good for small business. It's not good for our community. All it does is drain people's money, and it's bad for society in general. And I really saw the community come together, and we fought against the big casino money. They had more money than us, and we just rallied the troops, and we defeated that casino. And at the end of the day, when we did that, the business community said, we are done with Mary Dubuisson. We need a true conservative who's really going to represent the people of District 90. They came to me and said, will you do it? And after talking to my wife and praying, we said, yes, this is the time. We're going to do this. It's time for new leadership in Louisiana. It's time for a true conservative to represent District 90. And we've been going at it and working hard, and we're in great position to finish this off with a win in the runoff.
I believe that you are in a great position. The conventional wisdom, Brian, having followed politics for many years, is that the second place finisher, particularly if it's close in the runoff, the challenger is usually in a very good position going into a runoff. And it appears to me with a 48-44 margin there, with the third party candidate being a libertarian, not a Democrat, it appears to me that it bodes quite well for you going into the runoff. I wanted to touch down a little bit on the casino issue that you mentioned here, and I believe, and you can confirm this, that it was $5 or $6 million poured in by the casino interests to get that referendum passed. I believe that the opponents were outspent 5 or 6 to 1, and yet the local residents defeated it. Was it over 60%?
Yes, sir. That's correct. If they spent, probably $8 million trying to push that casino on us, and it was a grassroots, local businesses, about 200 small business owners got together, and we defeated that casino.
Yeah. And what would you say, Brian, if you were in a debate with Dubuisson and her position was, well, I just authored the legislation to get a vote over in St. Tammany. I didn't vote for it or whatever. I just authored the legislation so the people could have a vote on it. Not being involved in the internal politics of St. Tammany, what would be your response to that?
Well, it's just not true. She went around and did stump talks with the casino, trying to sell the casino. And there's a really famous one that anyone can Google, where she tells the local pastors that they should be grateful that we're going to get this casino, because somehow it's going to put more money in their collection baskets. Like,
what?
That's all the pastors are interested in.
Oh, my gosh.
She didn't just put the bill out there and said, let the voters decide. She went around and did stump speeches with the casino and actively pushed the casino and fought against the pastors who were trying to oppose it.
Wow.
Wow, I did not know that. So definitely, hopefully, she's not out there saying that on the campaign trail. I'm confident that she's not advertising that particular issue and the fact that she sponsored the legislation on it. Brian, I'm taking it that that was one of the main issues, certainly not the only one, but one of the main issues that motivated you to throw your hat in the ring on this cycle.
Absolutely. It was, I think, the final straw, and then that got me into the race. And then obviously what happened in the last legislative session, Ms. Mary Dubuisson just went with the Democrats on everything, voted against notifying parents that if their children were using different pronouns. She wasn't supportive of all of the actions to protect parental rights and parental control over what's going on with their children in school. She killed the bill that would have given the Parish Council authority to the library board and committee. She was the one that was responsible for stopping that. We're still having an issue with the Parish Council saying they don't have authority to take action against the library board. We have all types of explicit sexual materials available to children in our library. It's just unbelievable. You would never think that these things would be going on, especially in Louisiana and St. Tammany particularly, but they are. And we don't have a representative that represents the interest of the people.
Yeah,
It's so
and the
true.
list, it is so true. The list is long and distinguished about what she has done and the votes she's made that are contrary to the interest of her constituents. And you're right on every one that you just named. And Danielle and I are going to go into some of those votes in a little more detail once we let you go today. Let me ask you this question, and then I know Danielle has a number of things she wants to ask you. You've indicated, Brian, on your website that Louisiana is last in just about every major metric and has been your whole life. What will it take, in your view, as a legislator, both individually with you and collectively as a body, to change that?
Well, the first thing is we need representatives who are there because they want to make Louisiana a better place and are not there to represent the special interest groups and the lobbyists. My opponent has taken almost $100,000 in lobbyist money. And I tell everyone I meet, who do you think she's going to represent? I can tell you it's not you. So we need that. And I haven't taken any lobbyist money. I think I have one $250 check from a friend who owns a movie studio. Other than that, I have no money from anything that says PAC behind it. And so we need that. And I will be a voice that's only there to support what's best for Louisiana. And second, we need to change our Constitution. We need a framework constitution like the United States Constitution that says this is how our government is organized, but we don't need to put in the Constitution every little special tax or every little special interest. That needs to be available to the legislature so we can make meaningful changes at the legislative level so we can move this state forward. And I remember years ago, I was president of the Alumni Association for UNO, and every session they were cutting funds, and they only could cut two things: education and healthcare. And so that's what got cut every year. We need to have the ability to look at other things that could be addressed. We need to make Louisiana more like Texas and Florida and Tennessee as it relates to our tax structure. We need to do more to encourage business to come here and cut through as much red tape as we can. One of the things I heard Clay Sexshiner say about Georgia is they create these industrial zones of particular parcels of land that everything is laid out. So any business looking at that to come in, they know exactly what it's going to cost to get energy there, to get roads there. All of the infrastructure is all laid out in advance, and there's no go meet with 15 different councils and boards and groups, and you have to get the blessing of all of these other little politicians. Everything's set up as a one-stop shop. That's why they get business. Louisiana is the only state in the South that does not have a automobile manufacturer here. I don't know if you've ever driven up to Oxford, Mississippi. They have an enormous plant there. It's a Nissan plant. It must employ 5,000 people. Alabama has Mercedes. All across the South, they have industry. Louisiana is missing out. It's because our politicians are stuck in the Huey Long, Baton Rouge model, and we need to break that system. We need to make Louisiana business friendly. We need to serve the people. We have enormous resources here, and we're just wasting our resources every year, and it's so frustrating because I see how great Louisiana can be. We just need the right people in office. And look, we have the opportunity right now to get it. Some great people have been elected already, and we have some other candidates that are in runoffs. The voters just need to get out and elect the right people. Stop electing people because you went to high school with them or you knew their parents. Look at the resume. Do they have an education? Do they have the ability to do the job? And are they coming from the right moral perspective? Are they good Christian people that are going to stand up for our values? Those are the people you need to vote for. It doesn't matter if you're friends with the other person or if you knew their parents. What are they doing for you in Baton Rouge?
Thank you. I mean, I can feel the passion in your voice, Brian. I have to think that your message is resonating with voters as you are going door to door. But tell us, what is it that you are hearing from voters, and what of your message is resonating with them the most?
I think and of course, everybody's always most motivated by what's affecting their pocketbook right now. And the issue that's affecting everyone in my area right now is the high cost of homeowners insurance. And I have put forth a detailed plan on how to solve that. I have 20 years of experience in the insurance industry as an attorney and an insurance producer. I've met with state leaders already, business leaders in this industry, put forth a plan that's on my Facebook page. And that is what's resonating. I'll give you an example. My homeowner's insurance 2 years ago was $3,500 a year. This year, it's $10,500 a year.
It's insane.
People are going to lose their home.
Yeah. They're losing. Look, in Terrebonne, people are losing their homes.
Yes, and I see it as a real estate attorney. I see the foreclosure crisis coming next because people can't sell their houses because the insurance is so high. And I've already seen it starting to build up in the pipeline that we're going to go from an insurance crisis to a foreclosure crisis. I am calling for a special session in January to try to resolve this. We have a new insurance commissioner. We need to work with the other southern states and create a compact with them on the reinsurance side. I don't want to get hyper technical, but that's what's driving a lot of the cost. I think with my plan, and I've been in this industry for 20 years, we could probably reduce homeowners insurance by at least 30% in the short term. I think in the long term, we need to add all natural disasters to the flood program at a federal level. Everyone in the country is susceptible to natural disaster. We just saw California get hit by a hurricane. There's earthquakes, wildfires. The commercial carriers do not want to cover that. They're not built to cover when every house in the area is damaged. You know, your regular homeowners, they were designed if your house catches on fire, but not if every house in Terrebonne Parish catches on fire the same day. That's what happens in a hurricane, all right?
Yeah.
So we have programs in place, but we need the right people to push it. I am that person. I've been pushing it. I have a detailed plan, and I think we can get this done if we have the right leadership in place.
Well, look, if people in Terrebonne could vote for you, I know they would, because the insurance rates right now are completely insane, and people are at their wits' end. I mean, it's really horrible and heartbreaking to see what, just the phone calls people get or the bills people get in the mail that say that basically your life is changing because you can no longer pay your bills.
That's right. The house that you thought you would live in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You can no longer afford it, and it's not because of your mortgage payment. It's because the insurance is so high.
Yeah.
Well, I love the addition that you will be bringing to this to the state house if you get this, Brian, because it's just so important. It's such a critical issue, especially for Southeast Louisiana.
I think that it is one of the things that I find remarkable about your comments here, Brian, really from a psychological perspective, is that you haven't even been elected yet, and you have the confidence and the initiative to be calling for a special session. I don't know of any challenger who's doing that, and I think that is just, to me, it reflects your desire to make changes and how interested you are in really making the kind of changes that need to be necessary. Let me ask you something else, just our own energy, about energy, electricity. My own personal electricity bills, since Joe Biden became president of the United States, and really in the last year or two, have tripled. Our electricity bills, I just couldn't believe it when I recently looked at it. It's just very hard to believe that we're paying this much in electricity bills. Do you know why that may be the case, and what may be done to sort of reduce electricity bills in residential homes in Louisiana?
A lot of it is hidden taxes that the Biden administration is putting on because they're trying to destroy the oil industry. They have an agenda pushing this move to what they call green energy, which is completely impractical because we do not have the infrastructure to do that in place. We burn fossil fuels cleaner than anyone else in the world. But the Biden administration has this policy that's pushing that. There's a lot of hidden taxes in there. Other than that, the other thing that drives your electric costs, obviously, is the cost of oil. because it's oil produced. I mean, natural gas is generally, in fossil fuels are producing the electricity for you for the most part. And when the Biden administration has put all these restrictions on oil and brought gasoline prices up and natural gas prices up, that's driving your energy prices. If you remember when President Trump was in office, I remember paying less than $2 a gallon for gas for the first time in many, many years. Well, we're paying almost $4 a gallon for gas now. That's all due to Biden's policies. The oil production didn't change. We still have all the oil. We just can't drill it. We can't get to it because of the roadblocks put in place by Biden. And had President Trump being reelected, we'd probably be paying under $2 for gas right now, and your electric bill would probably be half of what it is.
I get a sense, Brian, that you are you're very clear-eyed about the roadblocks and the encroachment of the federal government, not just the federal government, but the state government. In terms of your view of governance and personal freedom, what's your personal philosophy about that? And how do you view the role of state rep? To me, from what I've gathered so far in talking to you, it seems that you are very much pro personal liberties, and it seems that you are going to be a very proactive state rep.
Well, 100%. I think government needs to be out of the way as much as possible. The smaller the government, the better. The less regulations, the better. So, the Democrats believe that government knows best. I believe that the people know best and businesses know best. And to the greatest extent possible, we need to let them be free to make their own decisions and let the free market decide. And if we do that, our economy will grow greater than it ever has. And I think that's my core fundamental belief is in personal liberty, personal freedom, less government. And that's always been my personal, going back to my hero, Ronald Reagan, and that Reagan turned this country around. I remember as a kid listening to, It's Morning in America. And that's the way I've always approached things, is that's what we need in this country.
Yeah. And the core of it, of course, is individual freedom. And you talked a few minutes ago about doing away with all of the bureaucratic red tape that so strangles and hampers businesses from being able to thrive in Louisiana. But that's very, very well said. I want to ask you, Brian, about your race specifically. You did very well in your primary over there, 44%. Your opponent was at 48%. Obviously, you kept her under 50%. Forced a primary. Having followed politics for many years, that is traditionally a good place for a challenger to be in. Do you feel that the results in the primary bode well for you going into the runoff?
I do. I feel great about where we are. There's just a little over 300 votes between us. Even though it was 4 points, it was just a little over 300 votes. Our voters are your core conservative, true Republicans. They generally come back out to vote. It's going to be, I was disappointed in the 30% turnout in the primary. We're probably going to have 20% if we're lucky in the runoff. I feel good that my voters are coming back out. My voters are motivated. We have a very good ground game. We're out knocking doors. I have teams out knocking doors, even though I'm out of town today. And as soon as I hit the ground, I'll be out knocking doors with them again. Our voters are motivated to get real representation for District 90. I think they're going to come back to the polls in higher numbers than the other side. The true conservative Republicans have been with me. The pastors are with me. I feel good about where we are. Of course, I have the endorsement of the Republican Party of Louisiana and the St. Tammany Republican Party. We just need to get our people to the polls. Look, if you want Louisiana to change, now's your opportunity. If you want Louisiana to stay the same, that's my opponent. I call it the Keep Louisiana Last crowd. If you want to try to make Louisiana great, I'm the guy that's going to go fight to do that. And all you got to do is show up and vote for it. But if you don't vote, we're not going to change this state.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'm so struck by the contrast between you and Mary Dubuisson. It's not even like, there's no gray area here for me. I mean, we looked, you had already alluded to the fact that she sponsored pro-abortion legislation this past session in an election year, and she had the gall to go before pastors and tell them that casinos were going to be good for their parishioners. It's completely insane to me, not just the voting record she has, but the legislation that she herself has sponsored on behalf of these special interests, on behalf of, honestly, evil, because I just see casinos as stealing money from people and destroying families. This is my personal view. And of course, I believe abortion is destroying the future of our state. If you wanted to talk to people about what distinguishes you from her Other than things that we've touched on, obviously, is there any other distinction that you would like to be clear in the minds of our listeners?
Well, obviously, I'm 100% pro-life, and I will not support any legislation to weaken Louisiana's abortion laws at all. Zero, none. I also will protect parents' rights. I think the parents have the right to know what's going on with their child at school. The parents have the right to make their medical decisions, and no state government should ever force that on any parent. Also, I was appalled that the federal government and the state government shut down churches during COVID. That's a fundamental right that should have never happened in this country, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that that never happens again. We shouldn't be mandating that people put injections into their bodies. I took the vaccines and I believe in them, but I'm not going to force another American to do that. That goes against the principles of freedom. We don't shut down churches. We don't force people to take medical injections without their consent. That's not what we do in this country. And I stand with true conservative values, true conservative principles, and I will not back down from them for anyone. I'm supported by local people. I'm there to drain the swamp. My opponent is backed by the lobbyists. They want to keep her there because they know that she will do their bidding, and they know that I will stand up against them and fight for the people.
Yeah, very well said, Brian. Speaking of going back just for a minute on this abortion legislation, obviously you were endorsed by the Louisiana Right to Life organization. Dubuisson, your opponent, sponsored legislation. I read that legislation, and there's no question that it would create a loophole, a precedent that would ultimately lead to right back to abortion on demand in Louisiana. I don't know enough about your opponent to know whether or not she believes in abortion on demand, but I can tell you that reading that legislation, when you put it presumptively in the hands of any doctor to determine whether or not a fetus is non-viable or viable, you are giving doctors who may well be pro-abortion and promoting the abortion lobby the right to make those decisions with no judicial or legal scrutiny. And that's how Roe v. Wade started, and that's how Roe v. Wade led to abortion on demand in this country. So her legislation was just atrocious when it comes to protecting the unborn. And you're exactly right. It would have created a very large loophole. And I think that that needs to be definitely pointed out to the voters.
Well, and that's why it's important to have someone that's an educated person. I have a law degree. I have an undergraduate degree. I've run 2 successful businesses writing laws. I mean, if you need your appendix out, you don't go to the barbershop. You need and you don't have to be an attorney, but you should have an education and be able to understand words matter in laws. And so she put a word in her bill, and she tries to tell people that it wasn't going to expand abortion. It was just to handle this one medical emergency. But the attorney that wrote that, which is a pro-abortion attorney for her, knew exactly what they were doing. And they used a term called non-viable instead of the term that's defined in the law already, which is medically futile. Those distinctions matter in the law. You use an undefined term, and then you give it up to one doctor instead of two. That's how loopholes are created. Whether Dubuisson was smart enough to know that, she should have been, or not, it's still the people deserve a representative that is smart enough to understand what's going on and will stand on their principles. And I can do that.
Yes. There was a great Cardinal Richelieu, Brian, who said, "You show me 4 of the most logical, airtight words written by any leader, and I can probably find an excuse in them to hang the man." So that's why it's so important. Language is so very important. And with you as a lawyer, understanding the nuanced interpretations of terms, and also simply knowing that there are very sinister forces right here in Louisiana who try every session to weaken the pro-life laws in Louisiana, and certainly that legislation did that. Let me ask you this, Brian. We've already talked about the casino gambling over there, and your response to that I thought was very appropriate. What do you want voters to be thinking of? And I know we've touched on a lot of these things generally here in the show, but if I was going into the voting booth to vote in this race tomorrow, what would you want me to be thinking about? What would you want me to have on my mind as I made the decision on this critical vote in this critical race?
I think they need to think about it this way. The future of Louisiana and the future of the Slidell area is on the ballot. If you want Louisiana to stay last and continue on the road it's going on and not have more improvements in our district, then stick with what you've got, because that's what we've gotten. Louisiana is continuing to fall behind, and we have no major improvements in our area. If you want someone who's going to go and fight to change this state, to move Louisiana forward so that we are gaining population instead of losing population, and we are attracting new business here, and we are developing business and industry in our local area to improve the opportunities for jobs and education for our citizens, I am the candidate for you. The voters need to make a decision. Are they happy with the status quo? Are they happy to be last? Or do they want an opportunity for Louisiana to start winning and to have real representation and an active representative who has the ability to make change in this state?
So well said, Brian. So well said. And we support you. We endorse you, and we will be cheering for you in the next, month? Just a couple weeks, actually, not even a whole month left.
Yeah.
How can our listeners learn more about you? Give us your website and any other places you want them to look.
Absolutely. My website is makelouisianagreat.com, and you can go there or to our Facebook page, Brian Glorioso for State Representative District 90. All of our information is on our Facebook page. My insurance plan is outlined on the Facebook page, and then we have a lot of information on our website. They can always go there, and then they can contact me through Facebook Messenger or on our website. I'm happy to answer any questions. The most important thing is your vote matters. It's going to be a small turnout election. Get your family out to vote. Get your friends out to vote. This is our opportunity to change this state. Let's not miss it.
I love it. Before I let you go, Brian, and this just popped into my head, I want to ask one last question, because I know for a fact that this is one of the things that citizens across Louisiana, not just in your district, but across Louisiana, are quite disillusioned about. And it is this, that so often candidates run for office promoting a very conservative constitutional platform, pledging loyalty and fidelity to the citizens. And then they get elected and they go in, and within 6 or 8 months or a year, they become virtually unrecognizable because they've become corrupted by special interests or the desire to enrich themselves, or they're paying heed to big donors. What would you say to listeners who, to reassure them that the Brian Glorioso who's talking to us today is the same Brian Glorioso who's going to serve in the legislature and be faithful to the citizens who elected him?
Well, what I would tell them is look at why I'm running. I have a successful business. I built a successful business in St. Tammany. I don't need another job. I'm running because I'm frustrated, like many of them are, that Louisiana has been last. I have not taken money from the special interest swamp in Baton Rouge for a reason. I don't want to do their bidding. I want to do the work for the people, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to fight with everything I have to make these changes. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm there to do. I'm there to represent the citizens and to make changes. I'm not there for myself. I'm not there for my business. It really takes away from my business for me to be there, but I feel if good people do not take the opportunity and the effort to run, we're never going to change this state. And the system is not designed for people like me that are successful in business to take time away from their business to do this. But if we don't do it, we're never going to move Louisiana forward. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I am tired of Louisiana being last, and I know I can make a difference, and I'm willing to make the sacrifice to do that. And I just need the voters to give me the opportunity, and we're going to do it.
John F. Kennedy said, Brian, that we are the boss. The people are the boss, and we will get the government that we demand and deserve. Well, based upon everything we've said today, the voters in St. Tammany deserve and hopefully will demand your service in the state legislature. God bless you, sir, for being here today. Enjoy the rest of your trip. What an inspiration to talk with you today. And we're going to be blasting you out all over the place. Godspeed to the end of this, what hopefully will be a victorious election for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. Have a great trip. Chris, he's got so much passion. He's like filled with fire, and he has the vision, and he has the plan to back it up. You know, a lot of times, and I don't think we've really experienced this so much, but you think about politicians, and I think about, there's a lot of blather, but there may not be very much substance to back it up. But this guy has real substance. He has a real plan. He's got real passion, and he's got the energy. I think he's going to take it across the finish line.
Yeah, it's like we have a young, vibrant stallion running against a half dead old carcass.
Okay.
And that's really what comes to mind when I think of the comparison between these two. And what makes me come to the conclusion about the opponent Dubuisson that I just expressed is not so much personal, because I don't know her personally. All we can do is go, and Brian alluded to many of these votes, is go and look at what she has done in the legislature, much of which I'm sure she doesn't want the voters in St. Tammany to know. And I guarantee you she's not advertising these things, but the list is long and troubling.
It is. And Chris, I mean, we touched on a few of these things. I think Brian touched on some, and we touched on some. But why don't you give us a rundown of Dubuisson's very dubious voting record, and just help create an even starker distinction between Brian and her?
Yes, and as you said, Danielle, Brian alluded to a number of these and referenced a number of them specifically, but I can go through these briefly. Dubuisson supported the tyrannical COVID lockdowns, did the governor's bidding on the masks and the vaccine coercion and all that in 2020. The lockdowns was 100% in bed with the governor. As Brian talked about, she supported the law for the local referendum to expand casino gambling in St. Tammany in 2021. She sponsored legislation to weaken legal protections for unborn children in Louisiana. She opposed protecting our children from sexually inappropriate topics in school. She opposed parental rights on their own children's identity and pronouns by which children are referred in schools. She supported, very troublingly, a multi-state teacher compact sponsored by former state rep Buddy Mincy that would have completely compromised Louisiana's sovereign right to determine how we certify and reciprocate on our teachers in Louisiana. I mean, just basically giving away Louisiana authority and Louisiana power on that important issue. She opposed parental rights to give parents access to their child's lesson plans in school so they can see what they're teaching. She opposed prohibiting unqualified people from recommending experimental vaccines to students, where it should be just doctors making those recommendations. Very recently, she supported legislation that I know is must have been your favorite piece of legislation in the last several years in the legislature, because your parents are both pharmacists and warned against this. But she supported legislation allowing pharmacists and pharmacy interns to administer experimental vaccines to children as young as 7 years old with no prescription and no knowledge of their medical background or their medical history. On the fiscal level, she supported exceeding the state spending cap. Certainly wasn't one of the 19 strong Republicans who stood up against further squandering of taxpayer money in 2023. And in 2022, she was absent for a very important vote in the legislature to protect our election system from dark, foreign, and corrupt money. And this really is the tip of the iceberg here, Danielle. You and I could devote really a whole show to Mary Dubuisson's voting record, and she has been absent on a number of votes. I mean, I just think that a new nickname for her should be Dubious Dubuisson.
Chris, I'm not going to mince words here. Her voting record is an absolute dumpster fire. I don't think that anyone who is in their right mind could go and vote for her, because her voting record is downright evil. It's absolutely evil. I mean, if she had her way, parents would have no rights. The state would own their children, the children, and they would be indoctrinating kids with whatever they saw fit. And also vaccinating them probably twice a day.
Absolutely. Everything that we just went over, and like I said, this isn't everything, but everything that we just went over is the absolute antithesis of individual freedom, individual sovereignty, and parental choice. All of this, and you said a minute ago, Danielle, about her voting record being a dumpster fire. When you said that, I had this immediate picture in my mind of this massive dumpster fire, and Brian Glorioso was standing there trying to pour water on it to put the thing out finally once and for all. And from what I'm hearing, he has proverbially plenty of water in his tank right now going into this runoff election. And boy, for all the reasons that he talked about and that we talked about, it is time for change in District 90.
Yeah. And I just am so grateful that there's such a great candidate that has stood up to run. I mean, obviously, he has successful businesses. He doesn't need to run. He's not running for money. He's probably going to lose money as a result of running. And that should be a test. That should absolutely be a test of who you're looking at when you vote. Will they gain or will they personally lose from doing this job?
Absolutely. And the fact that he is not taking any special interest money, isn't that a powerful testament?
Yeah, it is a powerful testament.
Yeah. So anyway, we will keep following this race and hoping and praying and spreading the word out all over Louisiana from our podcast regarding Brian and his runoff. And as always, Danielle, I want to thank our listeners to the State of Freedom today for their continued support and subscribing and sharing our show. You know, our vision from the very beginning has been to spread and expand the State of Freedom across Louisiana so that constitutional conservatives and the voice of constitutional conservatism, just like we heard today from Brian, can be expressed on a broader and broader platform. I've always believed that if the citizens of Louisiana really knew the facts about what their elected or many of their elected legislators are doing in the legislature, they simply could not win re-election. So if the voters in St. Tammany know what Mary Dubuisson's record actually is, and we're going to help them in every way we can to know that, Brian Glorioso should be the next state legislator out of District 90. But I just want to thank all our listeners to the State of Freedom and encourage them to continue supporting us and subscribing. And why don't you tell them how they can do that?
Yes, you can visit our website at freedomstate.us and you can support us there. Our payment processor is Glow FM, so it'll just take you to another page, but that's one way you can do a low monthly subscription, or you can give a one-time gift if you would like. Also, if you're interested in advertising, just drop us a line at info@freedomstate.us. And Chris, for supporting people like Brian Glorioso, listeners can also be supporting LCAG.
Absolutely. Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. We are helping with whatever resources we have, candidates like Brian, to expose the records of these opponents. Much of the work that we do is called opposition research, opposition publication, where we are exposing the actual records of many of these incumbents. And the last thing they want their voters to know is what those records are. But we're using our platform and our infrastructure to advance that information and make sure it gets out there. And so we encourage our LCAG supporters to donate to the LCAG PAC, either online at lacag.org or P.O. Box 64952, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70896. It will be some of the best resources you ever invested, because we are getting the information out unapologetically, and we are going to return the state legislature to the people.
Yes, and I'd love to share a new opportunity as well. For any listener who may already be investing in precious metals or interested in taking a look at investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in that industry, Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals online at the best prices on the market, or you can get involved on the selling side as well. So if you're just interested in purchasing, you can visit metalstacks.com/DWalker. It helps me out. I can get the commission. And if you're interested in learning about the network marketing aspect, please email me at danielle@freedomstate.us.
And as always, Danielle, what a pleasure, what a blessing, what a small slice of heaven it is to be here with you today. And I look forward to convening again and taking yet another step to preserve the state of freedom in Louisiana.
Amen. Have a wonderful day, Chris.
You too.
Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to the State of Freedom, LLC, at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.